Hey guys, welcome back to the Modern Christian Men's Show. I am Caleb Nelson. Really excited to have you back with us. I got a buddy of mine going to join us today. Now, when you first see him, you might think it's Terry Hulk Hogan. It's a close second. It's my dear brother Marc Stephens. And Marc, I am excited to have you here with us, man.
Thank you. I am completely humbled by that introduction.
Well, you know,
man, so
yeah. I mean, welcome to the Gun Show, everybody. So. Hey, Marc, I really appreciate you being here. I alluded last time on the last program about calling, texting with you guys, and Carla was texting your wife, Betsy. I was in the middle of what seemed to be like this crazy time breakdown or whatever, as I was just going through this really hard time of oppression. And I told the story how you actually spoke to me, and I didn't know what was wrong, but you seemed to have like this. You knew immediately. I've been trying for 6 months to describe what was going on in my body, and within like 8 seconds, you had an answer of what was going on, and you're like, "Dude, you're having a panic attack. You're having anxiety." And I thought to myself, "Man, this guy's crazy. I'm not anxious for anything." But I did take your word and applied it right to my body, and immediately, I mean, the anxiety just stopped. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's that's interesting because when I heard your podcast and when I heard that you had discussed that, I wasn't exactly sure in the time when we had discussed that I don't want to say that you received that, but that it made such a impact on you that it was like, oh, it was like a revelation for you at that time. That's so funny because the reason I knew about that's because I've experienced it before. You know, it's like it sounds very familiar. So
right.
I'm glad I was able to give you some advice. I guess that was helpful.
Man, it was like literally the way I described it, turning the spigot off or the faucet. I mean, that's how it felt. You was like, oh, it's just your adrenal system dumping into your gut, and I'm thinking it can't be that easy. But Marc's never not told me the truth. So, I mean, it was almost immediate from that text message. It made sense to me that, hey, Marc knows what he's talking about. Try it. And it worked. So, man, I owe you so big. Thank you.
You're welcome. So here's the ironic thing about this. So a lot of people that are listening to this, watching this, they don't understand that you and I had planned to have this conversation a week ago.
Yeah.
We're having it today.
Right.
So, 4 days ago, I had a panic attack.
Oh no! What?
Yeah. So let me explain that because people will be like, "Oh my God, is Marc okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. Mondays at the gym we have leg day, and it's makes Monday even that much greater. So we were working on the leg press. I work with a trainer. There's about 4 or 5 guys that work out with me 3 days a week. We all push each other. It's just what I do. And we were going really heavy on the leg press machine. That's a machine you kind of sit down in and you're pushing the weight up with your legs, and we get real heavy with it. And we were doing these rest pause sets where you do like 15 reps, you rack it for 5 seconds, do 15 more, rack it for 5 seconds, and then you do 20. So you're literally getting 50 reps in on a set and heavy weight. It's very intense. And there's one thing about this machine that it's very difficult to breathe because, I'm a bigger guy, so I do carry a little weight around my middle. When you're sitting down and crouched down, that weight's coming down on you. It's getting into your like abdomen. And sometimes it's really hard to remember to breathe because it's hard to breathe, honestly.
Right. So
once I got done with this big set, I had a situation where it's only happened one other time where I felt something in people are going to think I'm crazy, but I think what it is like a blood vessel in your head. Just you get like it's instant headache. And so I've had it happen real bad one other time. It wasn't as bad this time. So I like got up and there must be an expression that gets on your face because my trainer was like, "How bad is it?" And I was like, "Yeah, give me a minute here." So I'm walking, we're almost done with the workout and I'm kind of walking it off, okay, we're going to be good. Finished my final set of stuff we had to do. And then all of a sudden, man, that feeling, that anxiety feeling just comes over me when I'm at the gym. And I was like, okay. So I walked outside for a minute um, started praying in tongues and, speaking the word and things like that over my life and just recognizing it for what it is.
Right.
And then, a few minutes later, I was, it kind of subsided. But we need to talk about this kind of stuff because I feel like there's a lot of different things that go on when those kind of things happen in people's lives.
Right.
It's a physical ailment, symptom. And I think there's different reasons that it comes. That's at least what I found out in my experiences. So like there's a misalignment somewhere in your life when that happens. And this, for me, when it happened, it was a physical, the misalignment was physical. I had a lot of stress on my body and it kind of followed up from that. And I recognized that and I dealt with it, you know what I mean? But a lot of times in the past, when I've got those kind of feelings, it's not always simply physical, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was feeling it in my body, but I knew it was like a spiritual manifestation inside my flesh. I know that sounds, a lot of guys listening are like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not listening anymore. But honestly, that's what it felt like. It felt like for the first time ever in that regard, the negative or the negative spiritual attack was actually coming through that veil. Man, we're going deep real quick here, but it was like it was breaking through that fourth dimension, and it was literally dragging my guts down. Like I felt like someone's hands were in my guts, just pulling down on them. Yeah. And so it was affecting here because I'm thinking, oh gosh, what's wrong in my body? But I could literally feel it there. So it was kind of a two-pronged attack.
And once you've ever experienced that physically, you recognize it. You know what I mean? Right. Hopefully you never experience that again. Hopefully I never experience it again. But now that you have, you can be more prepared, I think, to handle it and kind of recognize it as, it's an attack on your body. But there's a misalignment somewhere because that's the thing. Like if that's happening, you're leaving yourself susceptible to that attack somehow.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. Like I go to the chiropractor once a week and, he helps to align me, your spine. And I'm sure a lot of people have had stuff like that, but, and it helps, because what happens during the week and the different things we do, we are, sitting a certain way or, we have bad posture or, you're lifting and doing things and putting your body through different things, standing all the time, whatever it is. When you go to that appointment, he helps to kind of adjust you that way. So I look at that in a spiritual sense that, we have to have some spiritual alignment from time to time, when things, because, we're dads, man, we're husbands, we have different businesses or different, things that we're responsible for in the church and in ministry. And it's just, it can be more easier than we think sometimes to have some misalignment somewhere.
Yeah. And that misalignment gets us because we're so focused on those other things. Like you mentioned, man, we don't even are like, we're not paying attention that that's coming. You know what I mean? Our shield of faith, if you will, is not up on that side because we're so busy battling over here. Well, it's okay. Everything's all right. I feel all right. I'll get better or whatever. But I mean, it's almost like we can't be prepared in every way, but we really can.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I ask myself questions when something like that happens and something's a little bit off. So like for me, it was like, why are you putting yourself in the position to feel like this, or what is it about that? So you got to reevaluate things. I think a lot of times, I think understanding that it's an attack. A lot of times if there is an anxiety or panic attack, somebody's dealing with anything like that, is to, if you can get yourself in the position to like investigate it, be real with yourself. I think a lot of times that's how we can address it more. because I've kind of found that, finding joy in every part of life comes through an absolute intentionality of your time. So you have to you can't just be out there letting life happen to you. You have to make life happen. Right. And as men, I really feel like we have to be people who, I know you feel this way, but you have to be like going towards something. There has to be something that you're going after, you're conquering, you're trying to, you're just going after something. And as men, if we're not doing that, it can put us in a position. I think it was John Maxwell, one of his books, which he's got so many of them, and I've read a lot of them, and I've listened to him on podcasts, things like that. He's just amazing. Right. But he talks about like 3 phases that we can find ourselves in. And this isn't just for men, this is all people. But the phases that he talks about are the challenging phase, it's the comfort phase, and the coasting phase. So we're always going to be in one of those 3 phases, and we want to live in that challenging phase where it's like, we're going after the things we're supposed to be going after. Life isn't necessarily easy, but because we have vision and we have passion for something, we're going towards that thing.
Right.
Most people live in that comfort phase where, they might be, at a point in their life where they're successful. They're able to pay their bills. We're living, but we're not pushing past where we're at. We've gotten to a certain level where, we're living, but we're not really moving forward and going after things.
Like mediocrity.
Yeah, kind of. Most people live in that phase.
Yeah.
But the last phase is where you don't want to be in. That's the coasting phase. That's where life is, you're just coasting by. It's kind of life's happening to you, not, you're not the one making things happen and engaging. Yeah. So as men, I feel like we have to find a way to get comfortable living in that challenging phase. And, sometimes we're going to have to make, decisions. Sometimes we're going to have to make, tweaks with things. And I think that's important, though, that we have conversations like we're having now, because you need other guys in your life that you can talk to about some of those things.
Well, one of the things I never thought about was dealing with fear. I had never dealt with fear to my knowledge before. I'd never dealt with anxiety or depression, oppression, any of that stuff, which makes me kind of believe that I might have been slipping around in the coasting stage, which, could be pretty easy to do. Stay at home dad, haven't worked outside of the house in 20 years. Your wife is miraculously healed from cancer, and you feel like you've got, momentum again. And at the same time, was I living in momentum, or was I living there, just completely just kind of checked out, just getting by, if you will. And then all of a sudden, all these things that you didn't realize that you were facing show up, and you're like, man, where did this come from? What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're not alone in that. I think all of us, if we're honest, like we all fall into one of those 3 phases. Like, I'm not always in the challenge phase. Most of the time I'm in the comfort phase. I try to stay in that challenge phase. Sometimes I get into that coasting phase. But I think that's the reason you got to have people in your life. That's why having a great marriage is important, and having that communication and that relationship where you have an accountability partner for life that can, help you recognize when you might be in a coasting phase, or, dealing with some of those things like you talked about with fear and different things like that. So, and then having other men in your life, obviously, that you can talk to and, be able to share and be honest. I think that's the biggest thing, is a lot of times we find ourselves dealing with some of this stuff like anxiety and fear and things, is because we're not completely honest with ourselves. We think things are better than they are sometimes, but if we really evaluate situations in our lives, I think we can find more that that's not always the case, that everything's as good as maybe we think it is, but I don't know.
Well, and just in my case, I thought I was the only guy out here in the midst of where I was all by myself. I'm like, oh, nobody's ever experienced this. This is the craziest thing. I can't explain it to my wife. I can't explain it to doctors. And little did I know at that time that two of my buddies who live here in South Carolina were going through the same thing or even worse. Matter of fact, one of them listened to the first episode of the show, the relaunch or whatever, and he said, "Man," he said, "you were exactly right. What you described was where I was at." And I've come to find out since that's where I was, he's saying that he's 5 or 6 guys he knows was there. Had no idea that they were there. And it's like we're just swirling around it. We're like the buzzards swirling around our own demise. And we think that nobody knows, nobody understands, nobody cares, and nobody can help us. We're just kind of out here stuck by ourselves.
And I think that is probably one of the enemy's biggest ways that he attacks men, especially, is making us feel isolated. We always have that tendency to try to, base our identity off someone else, or we see certain levels of, employment and finances and things like that as we let those things kind of define us a lot more, I think, than we lead on a lot of times. And if we're not where somebody else is, it's easy to go down that rabbit hole of, this isn't fair, the victim mentality thing, creeping in, and that kind of thing. But I'll tell you, one of the things, we have to be men that are have a good maintenance system where, if your car is acting up, a lot of times that can be simply because we haven't had routine checkups with it. If you take good care of your stuff and it's getting, looked at, whatever every 6 months or whatever it's supposed to be, then a lot of times it's going to last a lot longer. It's the same thing with our lives. Like we have to kind of, go through like a maintenance routine and understand, where we're at physically, spiritually, mentally and emotionally. That's where a lot of things men don't want to deal with. But but what I've kind of recognized is Satan is a momentary attacker. We can have things going great and we can feel like we're in a great spot, but all of a sudden in a situation where you're tired, you're stressed because maybe you're taking on a little too much with good intentions, but maybe you get wore out. He looks for that moment to attack you. Remember I think it's Luke chapter 4, where Jesus is led into the wilderness by the Holy Spirit, and Satan comes at him and literally uses the word, twist it, to come at him and attack him. Of course, Jesus stands up to it every time. But I think it's verse 13 in Luke chapter 4. It talks about how that Satan would be back to look for a more opportune time to attack him. Like he tried, it didn't work, but he wasn't giving up. So he comes at those times, when those moments where we can be most vulnerable. So understanding that, like when you do get an attack, like if we can get to a point in our lives where, we can recognize it, but then all of a sudden go soon thereafter, after we've spoken the word over the situation and, we've prayed about it or whatever, and we feel good about, okay, we've subsided this attack now. We got to go back and we got to try to evaluate soon thereafter and investigate the attack to see where is the deficiency in my maintenance routine. Where do I make some changes to make sure that doesn't happen again the next time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, because like any machine, it has to be maintained. And you work with a lot of guys in the ministry. You probably see this a lot more than I do here just on the farm. But I mean, you were like, "Kel, what's going on with you? What's your problem?" I'm good, bro. It's just hard, And you're like, "No, bro, I'm not stupid." I mean, you were just getting the mail out of the envelope and reading it back. But so you've had experience there, personal experience and experience when you've helped other guys within the ministry and whatnot. How do you? What are some points you could share with us on how you help guys when you minister to guys, or men's ministry you work in and around? What are some of the high points of takeaways, if you will, that guys could practically apply where they are?
That's a good broad question, and there's probably many answers that could be
Well, you
helpful.
don't have to get broad. You can get down in the weeds if you want to. It's good.
No, it's okay. It's just, I mean, the fact is healthy people don't have heart attacks,
Mm-hmm.
So recognizing that a lot of times, a lot of times when there's guys that are struggling, I don't hear about it from the guy. I hear about it from his mom, his wife, his friend.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times that initial instance where a guy is struggling doesn't necessarily come directly from the guy when you hear about it.
Right.
You could probably think about that in your own life too with people you've ministered to. It's just
Yeah.
we as men, like I think that we just have to get to the point where as men being okay when we're not okay to share with somebody else that we're not okay.
Mm,
I've
that's
said
good.
I say that a lot of times, like it's okay to be not okay.
Right.
It's not okay to stay not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have to like, what is it we're trying to do here? Do we really want to move forward? Do we want to be somebody who's in that challenge phase, or do we want to stay in that comfort phase and just, and maybe even, get to the point where we're coasting all the time? I mean,
Right.
nobody really wants to be there, but a lot of us, I think we don't address the things internally because we feel like we can't do it. A lot of times we struggle with that identity stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's just like we know ourselves better than anybody else, so we know all
Mm-hmm.
of our shortcomings. But it always comes back to Caleb. It always comes back to: do you really believe who God is, who He says He is,
Mm-hmm.
and do you believe that you are who He says you are? Those two things. If you don't have both of those right, there's going to be a misalignment somewhere, because He loves you unconditionally. God does. He died for you, and He did everything that was needed to give you all the things that this life has to offer. But you have to believe that's all available to you, and you have to believe that He's who He says you are, and you're not who your past and your every moment that's led up to this point. That those things don't define you. It's the next
Right.
moment is what defines you. It's that next moment,
Yeah.
you know. But I think for most guys, if we can just become better listeners, uh, not just listening to people. I mean, that's very important, but listening to the Holy Spirit,
Mm,
uh, listening to ourselves a little bit, and just
right.
being able to understand and just be honest with ourselves. Better listeners and be honest with ourselves. I think we can go a long way with those two things.
Well, that's huge. I'll tell you, when I was there talking about listening to yourself, I've mentioned this before. I got in here, got my equipment out, man, and I just started reading confessions in the
Mm.
first person, and I'm like, man, this is me. This is who God says I am. This is who God says what I have in Him, and I did not feel that way. I'm telling you, the feelings were not there, but I pushed through. I made myself read this stuff and record it because I knew if I heard myself say this about me, I would be more apt to believe it than Mark or my wife or another guy or even my pastor. I mean, my dad, whoever. Like you said, we know ourselves better than anybody,
Yeah.
and it was just it I can't say that fixed it, because it's not really what fixed it, because I still had to listen to it a whole lot. But it made a big difference to hear me say these positive things about me that weren't like, wow, Kel is good looking. Kel has a nice head of hair. It wasn't that stuff. This was the Bible says this about me. This is my identity. And it goes back to me, it goes back to the teaching from Pastor about justice, one of my absolute favorite teachings, and how powerful that is, because it's really the basis. We find justice in the basis when we understand our identity in the house.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And it was the right thing to do. I mean,
Yeah.
that. I mean, it was the right thing to do. And sometimes we don't feel like doing the right thing, unfortunately. But I want to go back to something you just said there, because speaking those things that the Word says over your life, huge.
Mm-hmm.
But the what we would kind of consider the little things, you were just joking and you were saying, I wasn't saying Kale's this good looking guy, but you know what? Say that, man, because God thinks you're a good looking guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like those little detailed things, like those are important too sometimes. Like, you know, Kale, you do have a great hairstyle, man. God knows every hair on your head.
What's left?
Bald is beautiful, brother.
It is. Embrace it.
It's okay to say some of that other stuff. I mean, you're not being vain or, conceited in those kind of things. That's really what God thinks of you. He loves the way you look, and, he wants you to look good. He wants you to be confident, not conceited and prideful or anything like that. But, when the word rests in our heart and we're confident with who he is and we're confident with who we are in him, like people see that, you know what I mean? They're attracted to that, and that's really what it's all about, is being able to be an influence in somebody's life, that they see that difference, and if you believe those things about yourself, people recognize that, they recognize, and it's really what it is. It's the love of God in your life.
So what is one or two things that Marc does every day to be there, to get there, to stay there, or when he falls out of there, to get back there? Besides having a wife like mine, we're both very blessed men here, strong-willed ladies to take care of us and to keep us straight. But what other kind of things, just a couple that maybe you could share with these guys watching to encourage them to be able to face the day, because the day's coming?
Yeah, that's good, man. I do have a confession that I really have written to myself that I do say every day. It's kind of personal, so I won't go through it right here. But there's also something that I have over the years. My motto and my mantra is win today. So every day is a different day. So I always try to go in with a winning mentality that, what does a win look like for today? Sometimes that win is going to be me spending time with my children or my wife, and them being the focus of that day. And that's a win for that day. Sometimes it's going to be accomplishing a lot of things at work, but and that's open to interpretation from me. And that's how it has to be with everybody. But, win today. That's the thing I try to do every day. And then also, if you are married, obviously you have to have time with your wife daily. You just have to. And I know sometimes we get busy, and there might be a day for some reason where you're traveling or whatever, and I get that. But we purposefully have our schedule set up every morning when we get up. Our kids go to bed a little later at night, and we allow that because our time together is in the mornings. So we'll get up in the morning, we'll have coffee together. We do some devotions and things like that together. But really, one of the things that we do a lot is we just talk. Sometimes we'll talk about the previous day. We'll talk about what's going on today. But we always have intentionality in that time together, right, in the morning. So, there's just things like that we have to do. If you're not happy with where you're at in life, you're not happy with your situation, guess what? You got to change something. Yeah. And I think probably one of the biggest things that I would tell a guy that's struggling, or maybe they find themselves in that coasting zone, is, just make a small change. What's one thing that you can do that can get you on a path to where you want to be? Make that change, work on that. Once you get that, once you've had some time where that, is now a part of your life, then make another change. I think a lot of guys, they try to just cold turkey, go from being in the coasting zone all the way up to the challenging zone. Right. And you're setting yourself up for failure a lot of times. So I think it's small changes are important. Don't neglect small changes.
Gotcha. You guys at church have a conference happening. I'm not going to be able to make it, unfortunately. And I'm totally bummed. Look, I even pulled my headset out because I'm so mad about it. But I will be live streaming. If we get this out before the event happens, and even after the event for the replay, we'll put the link in the show notes about that. Give us a little bit of information about that event happening. So if guys are interested, they'll know kind of what to expect or what's coming their direction.
Yeah, appreciate that, man. February 24th and 25th, we will be having our men's conference here at Faith Life Church, and it's going to be amazing. You can join online if you don't live locally here in the Central Ohio area, but we're going to have Victor Marks is going to be one of our speakers. We're going to have Pastor Gary and Pastor Drenda are going to share at this event. It's going to be amazing. We're going to have a men's panel that's going to discuss next level living. So really, our conference theme this year is full throttle. So we're really wanting guys. I think the biggest thing we want to see is no matter where you are, because there's going to be men at this conference who are very successful, that are, men that I look up to, that Caleb looks up to, who have done things in faith that we've only dreamt of so far.
Right.
And then you're going to have all other guys that are going to be here that may, get saved for the first time, or may, just be starting out their walk with Christ. So we're going to have all levels of men at this conference. Our goal is we want to get wherever you are, we want to get you to that next level. Okay. It's just important that we start taking steps forward. And so no matter where you're at right now, we really do believe that this will be an opportunity for you to go to that next level, whatever that is for you. So you can go to faithlifechurch.org and you can register for that. If it's after February 24th or 25th, we will have a replay available for that. But just, let us know. You can send me a message, email, whatever. But I think this will be good for all men to be a part of this.
Awesome. Yeah. And when it does come out on the replays, I'll make sure to come back in the show notes and toss that in, because that's last year was a fantastic experience. My first men's conference there, and it was a blast. And I'm not real happy about not making it this year. You would think the guy named after the guy in NASCAR would be the one there, but it's okay, because I'm going to see you later in the spring. It's going to be great, man. But I appreciate you coming here and hanging out with us today. There's a lot of guys out there that I'm finding out. I don't want to curse anyone with this, but it's almost like the majority of men that I know are there, or they've dealt with this type of life before. And if they didn't get out yet, or they don't know how to get out, this conversation, just making it out here, letting people, just being raw and honest with people, letting them know that they're not by themselves. This is nothing that can't be overcome, especially with Jesus. That is the overcomer. We're overcomers in him. And I just appreciate you sharing with us today, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, man. Hopefully it was some of that stuff made sense and it was beneficial to you and to me and to anybody that watches or listens to this. But I appreciate the opportunity, man. Anytime. It's just good to have a conversation, and hopefully it will encourage some men out there. Men, just if you find yourself in a bad spot right now, talk to somebody, man. Find somebody that you can talk to, and don't be afraid to open up. That's just the society just continues to try to make us more and more isolated.
Yeah.
That's not how we're supposed to do life, man. We're supposed to do it together. We're supposed to do it with people, and that's what it's all about. So find some people. If you're struggling around, find some people that you can go to, and that'll make all the difference.
And if a buddy tells you to be honest with him and talk to him, be honest with him and talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Good stuff, man. All right. Thanks so much, Mark. Really appreciate you having been on with me, man. I have two brothers, both who spell their name Marc. One was born from my mother. The other lives in Central Ohio and has been a tremendous help for me as I've gone through this time of crazy. Listen, we appreciate you being here. If you need something, let us know. modernchristianmen.com. Check out the link in the show notes for the men's conference. We can also direct you towards different products if you need those to help you get past where you are. Most importantly, like Mark and I both have said, if you've got a friend that needs help, help them. If you're someone that needs help and someone offers you, take them up on that offer. Make them be a part of helping you, because they won't offer it if they don't mean it. So just take that for what it is, apply it to your lives, and get better. All right. We'll see you next time on the Modern Christian Men Show.